as we share and challenge you to be the best that God will have you to be. Grab a friend, sit down and watch, and actively participate of what God will do as we share. God bless you.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Living Life God's Way. And I'm sure you're hearing the beautiful music in the background. So, to start this evening session off on alternative forms of healing, we're going to have our very own Pastor Brian Calendar do an instrumental for us. So, as you jump on, tag someone, invite a friend, and share the live stream. We are live on Living Life God's Way.
Hallelujah.
Awesome. Thank you, Pastor Brian. What a phenomenal piece. And can I just say that that was an original piece composed and created by Pastor Brian himself. So kudos and excellent job out to him. Let me take the opportunity to welcome all our viewers to Living Life God's Way. I'm seeing Pastor Joseph in the house, Pastor Irvin, Dr. Ian. I'm seeing they're sending out shouts to Pastor Brian, our rabbi, and he who maketh war on the instrument. So, and also let me take the opportunity to welcome our panel. We have Miss Sheridine Skeet, She is an art teacher, an educationalist, and she's also into some form of therapeutic art. So we welcome you, Miss Keith, and of course, we
Thank
welcome
you.
back Pastor Brian Calendar. So we want to get straight into tonight's session, and I want you all to join in. I want you all to join in with us in the comment section. Share your thoughts, share your views. And as you logged on, please take the opportunity to share the live stream so persons could benefit from this amazing session. 2 weeks ago, well, let me back it up to the month of September. So, month of September was all about mental health, and Pastor Brian would have done an extensive session in mental health, and we have delved into different forms of healing. We've looked at mental health, we've looked at suicide, we've looked at physical health for the body, and we've also looked at part one of alternative health. And today we want to wrap up part two with alternative health, and we want to look at music and art. And I want to start with Sharadine this evening, the ever lovely Sharadine. So, Sharadine,
Thank
thanks for
you.
coming on again.
It's
It is
my pleasure, really.
so, um, I want to start off with a quote by John Diamond. And he said, "The basic purpose of art always was and still should be to heal." And I want to start off with that premise because that is the topic that we're focusing on today. I want to ask you a question because I have seen and been to a couple art galleries, and I've always noticed when people look at art, they tend to stare at it over a period of time, trying to decipher the emotional intent, the emotional content. They're trying to figure out the artist's perception when they were painting and so forth, or drawing, or whatever type of art they're doing. I want to ask you something. What, when you get into that space, because we call it a space,
Right.
what are the emotions that you feel when you're doing art? Can you go into a little depth and personalize what those emotions are, please?
Okay. It's actually like a little journey, right? When you go, let's say you're creating a work of art, I'll look at it from an artistic point of view, and then as the person looks at it in the gallery. When you're creating a work of art, normally it is based on a particular theme. So I will give you an example of a painting, Hold Your Head Up. All right. Now, this painting here has a woman standing at the edge of a cliff, and it's like she's looking up. Now, that is symbolic that the person reaches the end of their self. There's no way out. That's where some people might go to jump down, to commit suicide, and life. But this woman decides to stand erect, look up to the sky, and then you see rays of light filtering in on her, which changes her garment. It becomes light and glorious. Now, that painting there, for me, when I'm going through the process, built a lot of hope. I was thinking of a testimony that is coming out. It's like I'm saying, Lord, I'm this woman here. I'm at the end of myself. I don't know what to do next. There's no way, seeming way out, but I look to you. I will lift my eyes unto the hill from whence comes my help. So that when I feel the presence of God coming on me, I may be in the same situation, but I'm convinced in my heart and my spirit that He is delivering me. Now, from the other side of it, the person, so, and before I go there, in that experience here, I am changing and I'm shifting my mindset. I'm not
Yes.
focusing on situation. It's like an affirmation. I'm confessing, God, my eyes are on you. So anytime I reach in that kind of mindset or experience where I'm not sure, I look at that painting because it encourages me to hold my head up one and to keep my eyes on Jesus. Now, for personal, looking at that same painting in a gallery, based on reports by other persons, especially women, when they saw the painting at exhibitions, they stand for a long time and they will just look at it. Why? Because something speaks to them. It's either the colors, the posture, or they see themselves in that composition, or they see themselves at that woman. And something, as they say, something spiritual happens which transform their minds. It helps them to hope. It helps them to believe. So sometimes a person might go to a gallery and they're just finding themselves in there, or they imagine themselves in the field playing, or they just feel the artist arouse a curiosity in their mind that makes them think. So therefore, they're caught in that little zone, they call it, where they're, being entertained by what they do see. And again, the benefits of that to a person, they say actually, a person viewing artwork can experience the same intensity and healing as the person who created it. In other words, you don't have to be an artist to benefit from it.
Wow.
That blew me away. So that sometimes that's just what happens.
I think that's amazing to hear you say that, because sometimes it's like that piece of thread that is sticking out, and you pull it and it begins to unravel, and it's this journey of finding what this artist is trying to say, or the part of the painting or drawing or the tapestry that is woven that really captures your attention. And isn't it amazing that in a piece of art, what might capture your attention may not capture my attention? I think art speaks to us on so many different levels, and what might be the strokes on a brush that captures one attention to another, it might be hues and colors and depths and dimensions that you put forward in that painting. Am I right?
Yes, because you bring into that room or into that zone your personality, your experience. So if you're a person that loves light, you tend to see how colors play around on each other and things like that. If you're a person that into form, the beauty, you look at it. So you bring your perception, as it says, a mirror. So you look for yourself in there. Sometimes that's just it. Sometimes you just admire it for what it is, but then sometimes on a deeper level, it's like yourself, you're in there. You know, you bring your experience with you.
Agreed. I love it. And I'm going to touch right back with you, Sheridine, on that, because I love this trend of thought and where we're going. I want to jump over to Pastor Brian. And the name of that piece that he played for us was Overcoming. And I'm still seeing the fellow musicians on this live stream commenting on that piece being played. But I want to take it back, Pastor Brian, to I'm looking at my notes from last 2 weeks on what you did, and I want to start off with, and I'm going to use an example, and you're going to tell me how it plays on emotions and so on. I want to get the year right. I think it was 2 years ago or thereabouts. A woman was shot, a congresswoman, a U.S. congresswoman was shot, and she lost the inability to speak. However, through music and singing, because singing originates from the right side of the brain, she was able to heal she was able to heal to the point that she could speak and actually testify in court. Tell me about the healing power of music, not just when it comes to the spiritual level of things, but the physical healing of things. Now, a lot of research is coming out where persons are actually testifying that they've been healed. For example, cancer patients that do chemotherapy and radiation talk about when they play music after nausea symptoms and those feelings of tiredness and weariness, they actually lose that. So share with me about the physical aspect of it.
Well, I know you said about the spiritual. You don't want to talk about that too much, but you're going towards the physical. But you're not talking about it too much because music is very spiritual. Though it is physical, or though it manifests physically, so you're not off target at all. It all connects. One of the interesting things about us is that we are 80% water. Some people say 70%. We're 80% water or so. between 70 and 80% water. So sound responds to water. So when there's a song being released from an instrument or from something around, the water responds to that. I'm sure, and those of you at home can probably try this. Put a glass of water, or put some water in the glass. Have a glass of water, put it on the counter, get a spoon and hit a frying pan or something next to it, and you will see the water either go up, it may go around like this, or it may have some kind of response. The reason is that our bodies, our living things, respond to sound. So if somebody is sick, their bodies can respond to the sound of music. And hopefully, once it's the right type of music or the right sound of a particular type of music, the right frequency of music, persons can be healed from the instrument. If you think of David and Saul, Saul called for him to play when his soul was tormented. Um, and as a result, he he was healed
Yes.
he was delivered from torment, and the sound of music caused whatever spirit was inside of Saul to come under subjection as David played the harp. The harp is a particular frequency, which is a string instrument. Um, like we said last time, that's why somebody like Benny Hinn, who's very much into healing ministry, we will hear a lot of strings in the background of his music. It's
Mhm.
very strings are very strategic in healing because of the frequency that they release. Now you mentioned something like cancer earlier, Pastor Sophie. Research will show, that thing that we call a cricket that keeps a lot of this piercing noise. It has this research has shown that they vibrate at 100,000 kilohertz, and as
Wow.
they are vibrating, it causes somebody with cancer or somebody with leukemia, one of those things, to be the sickness will be subjected. Now, we find it strange because we think that you see the frequency is there's so much information going on in my head. The frequency of it
Mm.
is so piercing and so loud, it causes the water in the body, the blood in the body, to respond. Right. So the more you listen to it, the more it is suppressed, and that is why all that God created in creation is for our benefit. We may not understand it. That's why the birds chirp. That's why the wind blows and it makes a howling sound, because all of it connects with sound. What they have done over the years, they've created something called the keyboard, which has all of these different songs in them. So a keyboard can sound like a piano, a keyboard can sound like a string instrument, a keyboard can sound like a harp. It can sound like many different things. But the idea of it is to create atmosphere when it is played. If we listen to or we look at most bands in the world now, you'll see about 3 or 4 keyboard players on the stage, and you may be trying to figure out why is there 4 or 3 keyboard players, but all of them is playing something different. We call it a synth tone, which is a mellow tone. Somebody may play an organ tone, somebody may play a strings, and then somebody may play brass or fills. So all of these different things combine causes our bodies to respond. And as we go along, I will share a bit more on why our body responds to particular type of frequencies and how we ought to connect with them.
Wow. So, like, this is a
Mm.
lot of information coming at us, and it's really good. Pastor Brian, I want to ask you about there is a therapy in music therapy that is called a turning fork therapy. And it simply is where they use vibrations of sound to affect different parts of the body. And that's why they believe and they have evidence to prove that patients with dementia or patients with high cholesterol or high blood pressure, that if they create a certain pattern or a certain vibration, a certain frequency, that they can actually target specific areas within the body.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yes, that is very true. Your information is accurate. Now I'm gonna say some stuff and it may break our theologies a little bit here, right? Uh, there's something called the esophageal scale. and it is more popular among the Catholic churches or the Anglican churches. So something called the Gregorian chant is something that is more associated with the Catholic Church. So you'll hear somebody chanting particular things. But what is actually happening? They're chanting the first six notes of the music scale: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Right? There's no seventh note, and that was the original music scale. So the chanting, the Gregorian chants, they call it, comes from that. Now, when this particular thing is being repeated over and over, because of the vibration of the notes, you get C, D, E, F, G, A. Because of the vibration of those six notes, it releases the environment of healing. So, so when that is being done, and they do it over, so all of the melodic lines will be in those notes, nothing else. They won't go out of those notes, so always be in there.
Right.
So healing will be taking place because the solfeggio scale vibrated. It had different degrees of vibration. Let me share a couple. Like in the solfeggio scale, there's 396 kilohertz, which is somebody who's dealing with guilt and fear, right? And then you have 417 kilohertz, which is somebody who is going through tough situations and they want to see change. 528 kilohertz for transformation and miracles. Okay, 639 kilohertz. It talks about connecting with people and relationship. 741 kilohertz, expression and solitude, solutions, and so on. And then 852 kilohertz refers to spiritual order. So that's why I know that we may have moved so far because we thought that this was wrong, that we move away from the basic things of creation. Now, if I'm there are certain notes within this solfeggio scale that vibrates with the same grass, right? So while the wind is blowing against the grass, the solfeggio scale is happening. So what the initial people did was created the scale around the vibrating of grass, or around the blowing of wind, or around the sound of the sea. That's how they started. So all of these are things that God created, which was already in place. So, but we have moved away from them because we got caught up with this doesn't sound right. This sounds so morbid and so on, right? But when we go back and do research shows no, it is not that it actually creates the environment of healing, or the environment of being quiet or being still. That's why if you want to study music, they'll tell you to play classical music.
Yes.
More so than R&B or reggae or soca. They'll tell you to play classical music, again because of the frequencies and the connection with the solfeggio scale. So it is important to if somebody's, if you like, say a child, for example, say a child can't sleep at night. If you play that quiet type of music, the child will respond and go to sleep. Why? Because of the frequency that it gives off. So what the frequency does is connect with the water in the body, and it brings the body to a place of relaxation. That's why you may go to the doctor, and all the doctor will tell you you're stressed out. Go by the beach on evenings, go in the water, sit down on the beach and sit on the sand, or take a drive in the countryside, and you may go and pay about $200 to hear that, when in fact that is something that God has created for us.
Wow. So there's a lot of information coming at us. It's coming fast, it's coming heavy, and I know it's going to open up your mind. And Pastor Brian, I'm going to get back to you on that scale, and I hope I'm saying it correct. So solfeggio scale?
Yes.
Right. So I'm going to get back to you on that and the Gregorian chant. I want to go back to Sharadine. Sharadine, we've spoken a lot about the week prior and even earlier about how art connects us emotionally. And there is so much truth to that. I want to talk to you about the art and the psychological aspect. And it's down a similar path that I took Pastor Brian just now. I want to talk about, because in art therapy, persons like with PTSD or abuse or neglect, persons that have panic, anxiety, memory lapses and those things, psychiatrists tend to use a lot of art in their therapy to help connect a person to those psychological events that traumatic events that would have happened in their life. Can you explain to our listeners and myself, how do you connect art to the mind?
Okay, they say in the mind, the way it operates is like in wave patterns, right? And even if they do a scan of the mind or the brain, you're going to see colored patterns. Good. So the eyes now, which is picking up all these sensory wave pattern, when it picks up the color pattern, the body responds. First, the eye respond to it, the mind see it, and then the body respond to it. Each color has its own wavelength. It has its own strength. They say colors are powerful and they can transform, right? So for instance, if you're looking at red and you start to think about love or strength, all right, the energy coming from the red can minister to your body in that same manner. It all depends on the context in which the colors are used. So if you have a beautiful garden with red, it can speak of love, it can speak of romance. Okay, if you're looking at the yellow, it's cheerful, it's happy. You think about the sun. So if you're trying to inspire someone to be happier, then you want to have some yellows around them. So as they see the yellow, it jumps out. And I mean, just this morning, I received like a meme, and my friend, she sent this, all she said, all she sent was flowers with the yellow and said, good morning. You know, these pretty pictures. And when I saw that, I said, oh Lord, that means it's time for me to get up. That's just the response, because the energy, the energy of the yellow, the first thing that hit me was the yellow. And I said, all right, time to get up, work now. You understand? The same thing. And that is why when you go to hospitals, they tend to use colors like pink, they tend to use green, and sometimes blue. Because especially for someone who suffers from anxiety, they want a color that can be calm, relaxing, and just like the waves of the sea, the movement creates that relaxation. The wave-like pattern, when you see it, it starts to enter within you. So you start to move with that same rhythm. So that is why they embrace it. It's that element of color, the way it is used, the way they interact between the mind, the eye. And the thing about it, the imagery also is very important. They said they have this technique, placebo technique, where they injected patients, let's say with water, and telling them, I'm giving you medication. But because they thought it was medication, after a few moments in the test, it showed, well, I'm feeling better, or the headache gone, right? They said it's the same thing with the art. In other words, you could have gone through a traumatic experience, as you said. So in your mind, you're seeing either fight or quarrel or breakup. That's what your mind eyes picked up. But then when you have a picture now of someone that is happy or laughing painted in front of you, the mind doesn't know the difference between reality and what you're just putting in there. So that when the mind or the eyes see this new imagery now, it starts to feel happier, hopeful. Once you go through the right processes, you start to change your mindset. When the mindset starts to shift, the emotion starts to react. So with continual feeding of that new wave of energy and that wave of hope as you deal with other matters as well, you find the person can be restored. And it's a method which God used, by the way. It's a method. I always say the first therapeutic session was held in the Garden of Eden. When God created, by just his word, he created all the flowers, the plants, the trees, the birds, everything. When that was finished, then he said, let us make man. Man came, then the woman came, and then they both live in there. Listen, they said nature is such therapy. It can bring healing, it can bring joy, it can bring strength. It brings communication as well. So that was the environment that God created, and God knew what he was doing. You can't beat God. So basically, in terms of art therapy, all we're doing is just sharing in God's process of healing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Wow. It's beautiful, and I want to go back to what we said earlier about coping mechanism, and art really changed causes you. You said you were talking about the hospital and how they change that picture, and it causes the perception in the mind to change. And when that perception changes, so it shifts their reality, it begins to form new patterns of thinking. And so, in other words, their brain becomes rewired. And so, instead of focusing on traumatic situations, their brain begins to rewire to a new reality that is happiness or calmness, stress-free, and so on. And I think, isn't it a wonder that God created the earth in a vast array of colors, but he was very specific when it comes to the ocean. While it emits certain sound waves, he didn't choose yellow, but he chose blues and hints and hues of
There you
green.
go.
I didn't choose brown
True.
because I know when I go to some beaches in Trinidad and I see brown water, I'm like, I'm not bathing there. It's a
Exactly.
offish compared to if I go to the North Coast, I am like, yes, utter relaxation. So, isn't it amazing how God synchronized everything in nature, sound and light and color and art to work for his glory? To me,
Amen.
that's it.
Amen.
Right. So,
Yes, it
Pastor
is.
Brian, to you. Right. So, I'm going to take it to a little shifts because we're going to go back to the Gregorian chant. To me, it sounds as if this is an Eastern style of music that you're talking about. And with the influence of the Western civilization and the Western world, that is why QSC is in red color. That's Ian just threw me with that last comment. So we're talking about the Eastern culture, and I think sometimes a lot of traditional Eastern cultures that were therapeutic, especially when it comes to music, we don't understand because we try to internalize it with our Western hemisphere thinking. And so anything that we don't understand, especially in the Christian fraternity, we label it as demonic, we label it as wrong, we label it as not a part of. I want to go back to the Gregorian chant, and you spoke about it being Eastern music. Let's talk about Eastern music and why is it in extreme cases of where persons need physical healing, mental healing, you have war patients, trauma patients, why do they tend to go back to Eastern culture for their healing?
All right, that is where it originated from, and the secrets are there along with the explanation or the expression of the music. So they will go back to it in terms of sound, sound, and also frequencies. Now, for example, if you're dealing with a traumatic situation, now there's sometimes when somebody will pray, they will go to the doctor, they will accept all of those different things, and if you realize nothing works, none of those things work. Sometimes the basis is the foundation of sound in somebody's life. If you are, our hearts vibrate, I think it's at zero point 0.6 kilohertz or something like that. Now, if our heart is vibrating at that kind of kilohertz, right, and you have somebody who plays music and the bass is all the way down to those low frequencies, it will affect your heart. It will affect your being. It will affect you as a person. So those when those music would have been written, the frequencies were nowhere up there, right? Down there, sorry. If you talking about going down on the piano, all down the bass notes, like that. The frequencies were never there. The frequencies were always in mid range or higher range. The frequency were always there. Because again, if I'm thinking of the string instrument, the strings are up there. Not that they can't play below, but if you want to release certain emotions in the atmosphere, you play at a certain height or certain depth. and instruments are made like that. So often, what happens when we want the healing, we go back to the original. The original is where it was created in the first place. Um, some people I know that we get and with that not with the word just completely gone from my head, but we feel sometimes as if as a believer, there are people who not believers because they say, oh, you all play this type of music. How come you all don't play this other kind of music? But if you want certain effect, and you know, some everybody do not study the different intricacies of music. So they may very well think that, oh, you prefer to play this type of music, but it's not that. It is that this type of music releases certain feeling in the atmosphere, right? Certain emotions. The song by Tasha Cobbs, which I last time we were here, which I was playing around with, that is the arrangement of that song is like a classical piece. So when you hear and then when they get to the part, what kind of emotion does that create when you hear that, right? That is why you gravitate toward what was done more easternly than what is done more westernly, and it is not from a place of that you think somebody is better than you. It has to do with the origin of the thing. And I hear Charlene mentioning some interesting things earlier, and I heard you mention them as well. And I never really gave that thought that everything that God created that has healing in it has a color. That it has a sound and it has a color. The sun has a color. The moon has a color. The sea has a color. The grass has a color. The only thing that doesn't have a color is the wind, because you can't see the wind. The wind will represent the Holy Spirit, you know, so you can't see it. But it is interesting that all of these things were created with a color, and also the sound connects with the color and the expression. I saw Bev mention something earlier about that's why when you go to the sea, you feel so relaxed. Yes, because all of the sea releases this frequency to us, and driving in the countryside where the green is, where the wind is blowing, and so on. It is very relaxing. So I'm saying, Pastor Sophie, that God has given us a lot of things that we don't really take advantage of. We more focus on doing other things, maybe like taking some Panadols or something to get rid of a headache, when all we really need is a good sea bath. So the song of the thing is why we more gravitate towards the Eastern, what we call Israel, and the flutes and those kind of things, because of the frequency that they release to us.
All right. Yeah. So while you were speaking, this thought popped into my mind, and of course you are free to correct me and shed more light on it, as if this is a random thought. Mm-hmm. If music has vibration, because sound has vibration, then can I deduce that a person's voice has vibrations that can infiltrate another person's personality, yes, or thought patterns or thought processes? So when we say, what dominant voices are you listening to, it is not so much the words that are coming out, but the sound that resonates with the words that are coming out. Help me there, Pastor Brian. Make sense of it to me.
Yes, that is very true. What we always say, what you give power to is the thing that powers you up, right? It does that because there are certain people that you take to because of the tone of their voices. There are some preachers that people may take to because of the tone of their voices, right? This happens because of the connect. I believe that we are all connected. We all come from God. So there's a sense of connection with all of us. So we respond to that. We give that power. So we respond to that which we give power to. So it gets to us in some form or fashion, either by an emotional connection, which is the feeling, which is also a part of music. We can't ever distinguish feeling and music, because I had a gentleman, we used to call him the clerk of the church at that time when I was growing up. And he used to say, music is the feeling expressed through the medium of sound. And I remember that from being a child. He said, music is a feeling expressed through the medium of sound. So, Pastor Sophie, you can almost find out what somebody's going through by the type of music that they listen to. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to ask them anything. But the music that they're gravitating towards, you can tell whether they are in a dark place, whether they're in a good place, whether they're struggling, and so on. And I'm not only talking about the lyrical aspect, which is also important. I'm also talking about the tonal aspect, right? The tone, because sometimes I hear people, to my amazement, I hear people sing musical things in song. You hear people here, there's a saxophone might play a part, or trumpet, ba, ba, da, ba, ba, and you hear somebody singing like, whoa. So that means that they have connected with that frequency and that particular song. You know, so it is very interesting, and even though God has made all of it, we all connect to it, and we can't run away from it because sound is everywhere. There are horn,
Yeah.
you know, stamping, whatever. They're all frequencies. But when you made the statement, you are quite right. You can gravitate towards that which draws you because the tonal aspect of the frequency of the voice lures you into, right? It lures you into that by the expression of the emotion. Okay?
Wow.
And that's why, if I'm trying to say it quickly, that's why ladies respond to saxophones. Have you ever see a guy playing a saxophone? You see ladies sitting there like, and guy on the piano banging and stuff like that, and they don't pay money too. But when the saxophone guy comes up, it's all over. Why? Because the frequency of the instrument draws to the emotional aspect of the instrument. Yes, please. Does that answer your question?
Oh, perfectly. It just verifies what my thought process is, and also says to me that we have to be so careful of the voices that we allow into our space. And more than that, we have to be careful of our own voice that we allow in our space, because it resonates more frequently with us, the things, the tone, the vibrations that we use every day. So I'm going to come back to you, Pastor Brian. I'm going to go to Sheridine. Sheridine, I want to ask you, and I'm going to follow the trend of thought that I just spoke about with Pastor Brian. So I look at people often, and we look at the colors that they wear. So for example, my wardrobe is filled with pastel colors, greens and browns and oranges, blues, the more muted colors. Then there are those that love the darker colors, like the black and white, the grays, the deep greens, and those things. Then there are persons that they're just flamboyant and vivacious, and then there's the reds and the pinks and the oranges and the yellows. Can you tell much by a person's character by the colors that they associate themselves with?
Pretty much so, because the colors that we choose tend to reflect, just like the music we play, reflect where we are at, right? But let me do warn that some people just love colors, and you can try it out. You ask one person, "Oh, I love green, I love red, I love another thing," and then some people say, I don't have a favorite color, right? So we won't label you too quickly. But on a normal way of scheme of things, colors say a lot. For instance, you find a person who wears a lot of green. It's either their personality, they are nurturers. They have a way of bringing healing or bringing comfort to others. A person who might tend to wear yellow, they might be a sunny person who like to joke around. And sometimes we call them they're crazy. Then again, some people might wear pastel colors because your personality to be quiet. And that's the reality. Sometimes on camera or in role, we talk a lot, we say about a lot, but from time the camera shut down, we're quiet. You're just taking it easy and relaxing. Some people just down to earth, so you go for those browns and all that kind of thing. And sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing. it's only after a while someone told, like, all the colors I was choosing, like browns, the earthy colors, and someone said, well, it's time for you to change our wardrobe, man. Everything is brown and everything. At that point in time, I just felt down to it. I just felt cool with things at that point in time. But in another phase in my life, after going through a traumatic experience, and I was just believing in God for healing, my favorite color became green. And so for almost everything, I had green in it. At a point, I think my car was green too. My car was green. Everything was green. I deliberately painted the walls of my home in a nice, peaceful green, because the green speaks about health, fertility, and healing. So you can tell a lot about a person, the personality, how they are wired by the colors that they choose.
Yes. And I think I was reading somewhere where even when it comes down to detectives analyzing and investigating serial killers or persons like that, they even look at their color, their trend, their pattern over the years, even down to what they would listen to, the music, their clothes, how what they would use, what they would wear, the colors, because it says something about the individual. So to me, that's very interesting. Let me ask you this question. If you ask somebody, what is your favorite color? And they say, I have no favorite color. I like all. What would you say to them?
I that's very interesting, right? Because you see, that's an interesting question, and we cannot get a concrete answer by itself. But
Mhm.
there are different scenarios that I have dealt with. Person who said I don't have any colors in particular. They are oblivious to colors, to what it means. They just almost muted when it comes to things around them. Some people, if you carry them to nature, it's like, oh, I'm only seeing mosquitoes. I'm only seeing sandflies. I'm ready to go home. Or when we leaving, some people just not into nature. And because their eyes have not been open to it and they just don't have a preference for it. Then some
Mhm.
people, because of experiences, they have a dull appearance to life. And so, like, Monday could fall on a Thursday, it doesn't matter. What you wearing, I don't care. Once I get there, what you want, whatever you give me, it's sometimes they're just numb on the inside. They're sometimes so it can gauge, but that's why I'm saying it is also a collaborative approach for you to really understand. As Pastor Brian was saying, you have to examine the type of music they listen to. You have to look at the colors they dress. You have to examine the type of friends or the environment. All of these are like visual images that will feed and give you a more concrete understanding of the person.
Mm.
Wow.
But
I like
color
that.
is
As
it can
well.
tell. It can tell. And I could remember a time when I was doing a therapeutic session, and I never forgot this psychologist, because once you have an understanding of how the mind operates, you could, as a professional, you could control what you do or twist your responses to get your desired effect. But in her case, when she was in that session in there, she just started to paint. She didn't know what it meant and all this and that. It's only after she had finished, she was vexed. And it's like she said that I was vexed because the art sold me out. It showed exactly where I was. She said I was so ashamed. I hid it, right? So the colors, the way you use it, everything, it shows where you're at. And I'm saying if you want to move from where you're at, it's better to get a picture, get an understanding of it, so that we can use method to carry you where you want to go.
Awesome.
I was just gonna add, if someone is, I know there are people, Sheridan just said it, there are people who say that they're not into nature, but
Yeah.
God made us in such a way that peace is necessary. Now, persons who run away from nature are generally people who have an issue with peace. By that I mean, if you can't sit down somewhere quiet, where the only sound you are hearing is natural sound, that is a problem. if you can't do that. You should be able to sit down with no TV on, no cell phone, nothing for a few minutes and relax. Right? You should be able to
Should.
do that. The only song that you should be hearing is the sound of the wind, or if maybe if somebody's dog is barking or whatever. But no, nothing, no music, no praying, no talking, no doing nothing. Just sit there quietly. If you are able to do that, it signals that you have inner peace and you can connect with yourself, right? You can connect with what is going on inside of you. If you are running away from nature and you're running away from quiet, it says that something is up and it should be checked out. Now, sometimes we don't check it out, or we think that all is well, or just think that, oh, you're weird. But what I found, as you get older, then you find a lot of persons who are tormented as they get older because the inner peace was never there. You understand? So you can't separate yourself from everything or everyone for a period and come to a place of peace or relaxation. And that's why God has given. Why do you think Moses they went up in the mountain away from where everybody else was? Because there was time he needed peace. Why did Jesus go alone? Not only that he could have prayed to God alone, but he needed to pull himself away from others so that his strength will think. So there's a lot to it when we think of sound and the visualness of creation that is necessary. We need to connect with creation. We need to connect with the sound and the visual of creation. You understand? We need to connect with the sound of the wind. We need to connect when the thunder is rolling. That's something beautiful. You understand? When the sun is coming up, all of those are things that we should enjoy and admire because we are connected. What did the Bible say? That creation is waiting for the sons of God to do what?
Yeah.
Manifest, to take charge. So they're responsible. So they're connected with sound and visual and frequencies.
But as you said, Pastor Brian, when somebody cannot enjoy nature or enjoy quiet, you went up in my area because there was a time that I couldn't keep quiet at all. I was always on the go, always doing something. Something was up, but I wasn't fully conscious of it. But the reality is that we have giants sometimes that we don't face or we don't want to face because of the intensity or because of the emotional aspect of it. But sometimes, let's say COVID though, COVID forced you to be quiet. It's at times, it forced you to look inward. It forces you to do certain things. And sometimes the only places you could have gone was at some natural place. One of the first places they allowed us to go was to the beach. And they give us a period whereby we can go. So all of these things, as you're saying, something is up. But then we are not fully educated. We don't come to the understanding. But if something is up, knowledge is power.
Can I also add to this conversation that when we cannot connect with certain things, we try to overcompensate in other areas. So I am always mindful of if I find a person overly jolly or overly talkative or overly quiet to the point where they don't speak at all. And they may say, well, I am a quiet person, or I'm just a chatty person. But it says something because there's this thing of overcompensating. So you want to not think about the problematic situation that you're going through and you don't want to deal with it. So you begin to mask by being overly happy or overly quiet or wearing these bright colors all the time. And I think these are things that we don't pay attention to because we aren't fully aware or brought into the knowledge of it.
But you see, that is why I was telling you still have to look at the content and the context. Reason being, a person who was sad, who went through years of difficulties because of relationship, and you have a taste of joy and freedom, that is that is where you will reside. You will be happy. You will want to be expressing yourself in these joyful rhythms. You're now happy. You can change your wardrobe. So you'll be wearing that more often.
Right.
You understand? So if you meet a person at that frequency, it doesn't necessarily that they're masking. It could be they're celebrating. It could be passionate. But you have a problem if they go through the whole year and
Yeah.
everything you understand, and you capture a moment in their lives when they're happy. So we have to be able to look at it and understand. And what about the person who talks a lot? You don't know, probably they could have been in marriage for 10 years, 12 years, and they could not talk. They could not express themselves. They couldn't hear their voice. They could not have had an opinion. But now they're at a place where they feel comfortable to share. It's like,
I believe
you
too,
understand what I'm
Sherry,
saying? But
of course, certainly. I believe too that you look for patterns over time as well.
you're right.
It's not in a given time or space to say, well, I'm looking at Pastor Brian today or during this week. Everybody has different phases of their lives. And as Pastor Brian could attest to in terms of music, for one period, he may be only playing classical music, but in the next period of his life, he may dabble into something else. So we connect on different levels. But Pastor Brian, I want to
Right.
jump back to something that you said before we go, because we have about 5 minutes again. You spoke about the Gregorian chant, and it came to me, there are, I don't know if you would have ever seen the movie Serafina or any of those movies where they would chant over and over, this is how we overcome, and it would be like repetitive. And if we followed some of these songs, particularly the modern songs like Hillsong, where they sang, this is how we overcome, it's like this build up, and you find that many of the modern songs are repetitive in one line. Is that a pattern of a Gregorian chant, or that they're extracted because there is that build? Even in the song, you have no rival, it's almost as if they built the music because they say that's one of the greatest bridges ever written and musical accompaniment that just grabs everybody's attention. So talk to me about that in relation to modern music.
Yeah, what has happened is because over the years we have what we call, let me use the word merge. So we have put different backgrounds of music together with other backgrounds, and then we came up with something that somebody tried. Yeah, I like this. And then if it was popular enough, or if the right person did it, then everybody else did it because everybody else felt okay. Pastor Sophie did it, or Sheridan did it, so it's cool. They are well versed in this area, so let me try it too. So people have done that. So the repeating of a particular line sends a signal to the person releasing it, not so much to the person hearing it, more to the person releasing it. So you will hear that's like the Victor's Crown. Every high thing must come down. We will go over that part over and over, because you are saying to myself, everything in my life must change. So you are convincing yourself as you repeat it. Now we may say, oh, when persons are chat, for example, something simple as we may have an issue with that, right? But those frequencies actually release healing, because the melodic lines are connected with frequencies, and that is why it's unfortunate that we couldn't find the balance in between. But we have moved. We have tried to. It is like when we were growing up, and your grandmother said you should drink bush tea every morning. As we got older, they said, I ain't drinking the bush tea. I don't want no more bush tea. So what has happened? Those sicknesses have been introduced. So we have moved from stuff because how dare you bring that? That doesn't sound right. But what is happening now, as in the days of Elijah, so are the days now. So there are a lot of things that are returning. There are a lot of things that are creeping themselves back into our everyday existence of life. And we're seeing it more and more. One time we didn't used to see anybody blowing a shofar. Now look, shofars are everywhere, right? It is coming back. All of those necessary things are coming back because God created them to happen. You know, they're You mentioned earlier, Pastor Sophie, about somebody hitting the hitting the fork. All of those things connect with frequencies. And I dare say to somebody, if you are not well, if you have been sick, every evening as it goes on to 6 o'clock, go to your gallery and sit down when the sun is going down. Feel the wind, and you will see that you start to feel better. I guarantee you that. Also, if you have been stressed out and depressed, try to go to the beach every evening or early on mornings, and I guarantee you'll start to feel better. If you don't want to go to the beach, take a drive through the countryside where all the trees are, where the grass is, where it is mostly green, and you will see that you start to feel better. Enjoy the sound of the birds. The birds vibrate at frequencies as well. And enjoy the sound of the birds. Enjoy the sound of the wind howling against the coconut trees and stuff like that. All of those are things that are natural that God has created, and we need to enjoy them because it causes our body to heal. One more, Pastor Sophie. I dare someone, if you have been going through stuff in your body and your body has been retaining illness, take off your shoes and walk outside, or go outside of your house and put your feet on the ground. What will happen? The earth will suck from you all that shouldn't have been there. And after a period of time, you'll start to feel better. All of these are things that God has created. It is not strange. It is not weird. It is right there for us to partake and participate of.
Wow, I love this discussion so much. I guess that's one of my favorite times coming home from school, because we live countryside, so we would be driving with the air condition, but the minute we hit the country road to get home, all glasses go down, and we take that deep breath of fresh air, and it, like, you can actually feel it running through your skeletal system. So I guess you connect with it in different ways. So we're out of time, actually. It has been such a fantastic discussion. So I'm actually going to give you guys 30 seconds. So,
You.
this is the second time I did this. I did this in the
Let me take
seconds. So Sheridine, go ahead.
Right. I want to draw to your attention, right, that, even as we look at art as a way, alternative where you can experience the healing and the presence of God, I want to draw to people's consciousness also that it is also a process, and I want to draw your attention to Mark chapter 8, I think 22 to 24, where there was this blind man. And of course, blind, but he could not see. But he went to Jesus. Yes, he spat and he put his hand on his eyes. Then he told him to look up. What do you see? He said, I see, but I see men as trees moving around. And then Jesus put his hand on his eyes again. He said, what do you see? When he looked up, he saw clearly. All right, it's a process. Sometimes you have to repeat. Remember Naaman, when he had to go to the river, he dipped as he sung 1, 2, 3, 7 times before he got his deliverance. What I am saying, sometimes we beat ourselves when we don't get the answers right away. But sometimes, because of the depth of what we are going through, God has to work it in. God has to work out stuff out of our lives, and he is replacing that with his new way, with new colors, with new beginnings. All of this thing is a process, so that you never get frustrated because of the length of time. Just make sure that you're participating in the healing process, and we're maintaining the right picture, and allow God to have his way.
Thank you very much, Sheridine. Pastor Brian?
I would just say that know that there's healing in the God has created creation to heal us, and we have to go after the secrets. I would say to persons who are listening and viewing that remember, creation is at our command. Remember, even though you may go to the doctor and stuff like that, ultimately your healing comes from God. And as you move around the earth, expect your healing, because you can create the environment for your healing to happen. And choose, if you're going to listen to music, choose music that is not very high in frequency in terms of like guitars or very deep in bass. Choose music that operate in center range, which will be not dominated by an instrument. So too much bass or too much highness of the guitar, and find that type of music, and you'll see that healing can take place with music. It has been proven.
Wow, I guess that's what everybody now is remaking their songs in the manner with just a guitar or something like that. I guess so, right, Pastor Brian? Because all of these songs that used to be so hyped, they're now creating acoustic versions for it. But anyway, guys, it has been our pleasure being with you for the past hour and 5 minutes. I want to thank you for listening and for tuning in, for commenting. And I want to encourage you to share the live, invite someone, tag someone, and allow them to experience healing and what God has created for them. A lot of times we miss out, and the Bible says, my people perish because of a lack of knowledge. And we don't want to be people that there is knowledge at our fingertips and we haven't shared it with others and we haven't allowed others to access it. So do share the live. We would see you, well, not we per se, but if you are available, you can tune in at 8 p.m. For Impact with Pastor Joseph and Terry Lamont. So from all of us at Living Life God's Way, thank you very much and do have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Hello. How can we be successful? By living life God's way. Join me, Pastor Brian Callender, and a special guest each week as we discuss aspects of life and share nuggets with you so that you can be the best person God designed you to be. Join us every Thursday at 6 p.m. on social media as we share and challenge you to be the best that God will have you to be. Grab a friend, sit down and watch, and actively participate of what God will do as we share. God bless you.